Oh, welcome, you remarkable souls. Let's be real, some battles leave scars, others ignite within. But as someone who's been through the fire, let me tell you something that'll settle deep in your bones. The cruelty you've endured wasn't just a shadow in your memory. It's a thunderclap in the halls of the divine. Torture doesn't fade. It echoes. It multiplies into consequences. Science tells us energy transforms, doesn't vanish. And that raw pain they inflicted, it's boomeranging, amplified right back into their lives. They saw you burning, but honey, they were fueling their own inferno. Here's the twist that's both heartbreaking and darkly satisfying. They treated your pain like a game, but forgot the universe doesn't hand out get-out-of-jail-free cards to bullies. They thought they had that fire contained, but they accidentally unleashed a raging wildfire. Now they're scrambling with tiny little buckets trying to put out flames they can't even name. So hold tight. We're about to unpack why their cruelty wasn't just a low blow, but a direct challenge. They angered something far bigger than themselves. Are you curious what would happen next? Let's take a look at the facts. Number one, they didn't just hurt you. They challenged heaven's order. They challenged heaven's order. They never truly grasped this. To them, you were an easy target, someone vulnerable, someone without backup. But they failed to see that exceptional beings are not just random people wandering the earth alone. You are part of a divine plan. Your very being is woven into something higher. Hurting you wasn't just betrayal or manipulation. It was an act of rebellion against the one who put you here. When they mocked, conspired, or tortured you, they weren't fighting flesh and blood. They were declaring war against the author of your existence. Heaven's order isn't arbitrary. Every remarkable individual is strategically placed, carrying a purpose that impacts generations. When they tried to crush you, they weren't just harming one person. They were interfering with the flow of blessings, revelations, and breakthroughs tied to your unique calling. That's why their actions carry consequences far beyond what we see. They thought they were silencing a voice, but they were trying to mute a frequency ordained by the heavens. And trust me, the heavens don't take kindly to interference. Now let's find out why the downfall is unavoidable. Number two, torture against you is recorded in a realm they can't access. Torture against you is recorded in a realm they can't access. That's a truth they never considered while plotting against you. In their arrogance, they thought what they did would be forgotten, dismissed over time, or buried under lies. But exceptional individuals don't just exist in the physical. Your lives are mirrored in the spiritual. Every moment of suffering, every betrayal, every calculated cruelty has been etched into records that no human hand can alter. Earthly courts may be bought. People may lie. Memories fade, but heaven's archives are untouched, incorruptible. Nothing disappears there. What they perceived as silence from above was actually surveillance. They assumed no one saw when they lied, mocked, or caused unnecessary pain. But in that realm they can't reach, every action was weighed, every word documented, every intention preserved. And here's the punch, these records aren't just there to make you feel better. They're stored as evidence. Evidence for judgment, evidence that can't be twisted, deleted, or rewritten. This is why exceptional individuals don't need to seek revenge. The evidence is already piled so high against them that their own lives now testify against them. They walk around as if nothing happened, but their shadows carry the receipts. The very realm they mocked has preserved their crimes in perfect detail. And when the time comes that evidence won't just haunt them, it will bury them. The arrogance of your enemies was rooted in the belief that what happens in private stays hidden. They thought they could control the narrative, silence your truth, escape consequences. But divine records don't care about their reputation. They don't care about the lies they've spun. The realm they can't access has no bias, favoritism, or loopholes. The truth stands unyielding. This is why their downfall is inevitable. It's not your word against theirs. It's their actions against the evidence of the heavens. And no human can appeal that verdict. That's how tragic it is. Number 3, their fire didn't burn you. It branded them. Their fire didn't burn you. It branded them. It's a twist they never saw coming. They launched those attacks thinking they were destroying you, believing that if they turned up the heat enough, you'd break. But exceptional souls are built differently. Instead of being consumed, you emerged stronger, refined, more resilient. The flames didn't achieve their mission, but they left undeniable evidence on their own lives. In trying to harm you, they ended up branding themselves. That mark isn't just guilt. It's a spiritual stain that follows them. The more they tried to make you look weak, the weaker they became. They thought the fire was proof of their power when it was proof of their recklessness. You stood inside it and walked out standing while they walked away carrying burns that never heal. That's why they keep trying to distract people, why they can't sit still, why they can't rest at night. The brand of their own cruelty is carved into their conscience whether they admit it or not. You never have to convince anyone of what happened. The evidence is alive in them. Their behavior betrays them. Their instability exposes them. That same fire they used is now the evidence that defines them. People can pretend not to see it, but the cracks always show. You don't have to announce their guilt. Life announces it for you. Here's the irony. What was meant to bury you ended up branding them permanently. They thought they were controlling your story, but they were writing their own downfall. Every scheme, every insult, every trap has become part of the testimony against them. They can run, deny, act unbothered, but the burn marks of their choices speak louder than any excuse. So while you've risen from the ashes with clarity and strength, they're stuck with scars they can't hide. That fire never defined your end. It defined theirs. And now, no matter how far they go, that brand remains a silent reminder that they lit a flame they couldn't control. Don't be surprised, because this is life number 4. They mistook God's patience for permission. They mistook God's patience for permission. And that mistake will cost them everything. When they mocked, slandered, and dragged you through trials that were never theirs to create, they looked around and saw no immediate consequence. No sudden collapse, no thunder from the skies, no dramatic punishment shaking their world. In their ignorance, they read that silence as approval. They assumed that because the divine didn't strike instantly, it was indifferent, or worse, supportive. But patience from above is never permission, it's a setup. Divine delay isn't weakness or neglect. It's the stretching of time so every hidden thing can fully expose itself. They thought they got away with it because nothing happened overnight. But every extra day was a rope being let down, not for their victory, but for their undoing. That rope wasn't to help them climb higher. It was to give them enough space to tie their own noose. Patience is the divine's way of letting people reveal who they are when they think no one is watching. And they revealed everything. The irony is that the very silence they laughed at is the silence that sealed their judgment. When heaven doesn't respond quickly, it's not because justice is absent. It's because justice is accumulating. Their actions didn't fade. They gained weight. Every cruel word, manipulative move, plot against you was placed on a scale. And the longer the divine waited, the heavier that scale became. Now what they face isn't a reaction to one wrong, but a reckoning for everything piled together. They wanted peace without accountability, but the stillness they misread was never peace. It was the calm before the storm. Just like a quiet sky before lightning, divine pause was the countdown before impact. And when that moment comes, there's no bargaining, reversing, or pretending it never happened. The wrath doesn't fall lightly. It falls with the weight of accumulated silence. So they can laugh, boast, but the delay was never in their favor. Divine patience was the loading of a bowstring, and when it releases, the strike will be too precise, too heavy, too final to mistake for coincidence. You cannot imagine how scary it is. Let's continue to discover more. Number 5, they lit a fire that consumes their lineage. They lit a fire that consumes their lineage, and that's a terrifying reality they never factored in. When they targeted you, they thought it was just between you and them, a petty battle they could win with lies or cruelty. But exceptional individuals aren't isolated. You're part of a divine assignment beyond your lifetime. Every attack against you doesn't just linger in the present. It spills into the future. The curse they unleashed doesn't end with them. It stains their bloodline, poisoning what comes after. Their choices carry a weight they can't escape. In the spiritual realm, every seed produces after its kind. What they sowed in torment is now reproducing in their children. They thought they were building security for their families while tearing yours down. But they were writing instability into their own legacy. Corruption, loss, and decay become the inheritance for those connected to their blood. It's not something money can erase or reputation can cover up. It's embedded into their line because of what they did against an exceptional soul. The generational effect is what makes their arrogance so tragic. They imagine they can abuse and move on, but the heavens don't measure actions in isolation. Actions ripple, and the ripple becomes a tide. Their descendants will struggle with fires they never started, walking through smoke without knowing why life feels heavy. Chaotic, cursed. That's the invisible inheritance born out of the cruelty they thought was harmless. You survived, but their own blood won't escape the aftershocks. You rose from the ashes refined, but they chained their lineage to the fire. Every time they laughed at your suffering, they were adding wood to a flame that's now turning on their own house. Touching an exceptional soul is never just about the present. It rewrites the future. The fire they thought they had under control is now devouring everything connected to them. Their lineage didn't ask for it, but they will inherit it because the flame of rebellion doesn't just scorch the guilty. It stains the generations. It is a nightmare. Number 6, their power was never theirs. Their power was never theirs. They were borrowing time. That makes their arrogance laughable. They acted like they were untouchable, like the influence they carried was permanent, like the doors they opened could never be shut. They gloated, mistaking temporary privilege for eternal authority. But any power outside divine alignment is rented, not owned. And sooner or later, the contract runs out. That's why their downfall feels sudden. One moment they're on top, the next they collapse, stripped of everything they thought was theirs. Nothing was ever truly theirs. It was only tolerated for a season, allowed for a purpose. The power they used to humiliate you was never under their control. It was subject to divine recall. And when the heavens decide, there are no extensions. They built their identity on borrowed energy. Without it, they're exposed as hollow. The influence, reputation, fear they inspired, that was the mask. Take it away and what remains is emptiness. Losing it drives them into panic. They aren't just losing opportunities, they're losing the illusion of who they believed themselves to be. They built a throne out of smoke, and now the wind has blown it away. Let those exceptional individuals remind others gloating was never about strength. It was noise on borrowed breath. The same people who mocked your struggle will soon be begging for relevance, clinging to scraps of what they flaunted. There's no glory in what doesn't belong to you, and no future in what the heavens have repossessed. While they laughed, thinking they owned the stage, they were temporary actors in a play whose script was never theirs. Their time was limited, their power conditional. And now that the curtain is dropped, their collapse isn't just punishment, it's exposure. You have to remember it. Number 7, they wanted you to break, but they broke their own spirit. They wanted you to break, but they broke their own spirit. Every scheme, cruel word, calculated move was designed to chip away at you until nothing was left. They thought if they pressed hard enough, you would finally collapse. But exceptional souls aren't wired that way. The more pressure you face, the more your soul strengthens. What was meant to shatter you became your training ground, and instead of breaking you, rose higher than they could imagine. While you were growing stronger, they were deteriorating. The energy it takes to maintain cruelty isn't sustainable. Hatred eats its own host. Every lie they spread, every trap they set was draining their spirit. They thought they were breaking you, but they were breaking themselves from the inside out. That's why their laughter doesn't sound the same. Why their confidence feels hollow, why no distractions can cover the emptiness. Your resilience exposed their fragility. The fact that you didn't fold forces them to confront a reality they can't stomach. They wasted all their energy trying to destroy someone unbreakable. That realization eats at them. They see you thriving, glowing where they expected you to decay, and it mirrors back their own failure. That's why they can't face their reflection. Their mirror shows them the wreckage of their intentions. The more you stand tall, the smaller they feel. The more peace you carry, the louder their torment becomes. They damaged their soul and ended up exposing the cracks in theirs. Now they walk around with a fragmented, bitter, restless spirit while you carry strength they can't buy. The breaking never touched you, it circled back and consumed them. They became what they wanted you to be, fractured, defeated, and unable to rebuild. And that's the justice they never saw coming. Be careful of all the things you do. Number 8, their rage was never about you. It was about God in you. Their rage was never about you. It was about the divine in you. That's the deeper layer behind their obsession, jealousy, and constant need to attack. On the surface, they made it seem personal. They criticized your choices, mocked your lifestyle, convinced others their hostility was justified. But that was never the issue. The real fire came from the fact that you carried something they couldn't explain or control. It wasn't your personality. It was the presence you carried. Exceptional souls walk with an unseen authority that unsettles those in darkness. Without saying a word, your spirit announces itself, and those who resist the light can't stand it. They felt that invisible weight of divinity that didn't need to brag, shout, or prove itself. It reminded them of everything they lacked. That's why their hatred ran so deep. They weren't just rejecting you, they were rejecting what you represented. They wanted to fight the divine but couldn't. So they settled for you. You became the punching bag for their unresolved war. They hated how your life contradicted their lies, how your endurance exposed their weakness, how your faith highlighted their emptiness. Because they couldn't lash out at heaven, they tried to break the vessel heaven was using. That's why their rage felt excessive, unreasonable, irrational. It was about something spiritual. You triggered their inner conflict simply by existing. They reacted to the reflection of the divine shining through you. You didn't even have to fight to win. Your survival alone has proven that their war was doomed. You cannot extinguish a flame that wasn't lit by human hands. Their rage has left them drained, while the presence they tried to fight remains unshaken. They didn't war against you. They warred against the divine in you, and no one has ever won that battle. Pay attention to what you do and your behaviors. Number 9, their attempts at control created their own chaos. Their attempts at control created their own chaos, and they'll never admit it. They believed they could dictate your life, steer your destiny, keep you boxed into a role that served them. They tried silencing your voice, limiting your opportunities, twisting your story. They imagined themselves as master strategists pulling strings. But every move they made only destabilized them. Control rooted in fear always collapses. They didn't see that the energy to manipulate, monitor, and suppress another person drains the one doing it. While they were setting snares, they neglected their foundation. While they obsessed over keeping you down, they eroded their own ground. That's why their lives look messy now: broken relationships, restless nights, losses, confusion. It's not coincidence. It's the fruit of their own obsession. What they thought was orchestration was self-sabotage. They fancied themselves as conductors, convinced they controlled the melody. But what came out wasn't music, it was noise. Every scheme only added more dissonance. Instead of harmony, they created chaos. Meanwhile, you kept rising. The more they tried to cage you, the more obvious your resilience became. The tighter they gripped, the more they lost. And that's what stings them most. The realization that in trying to contain you, they revealed how powerless they were. They didn't destroy you. They destroyed the illusion of their own control. Now they're left in the ruins, unable to figure out how the trap flipped back on them. No one can control what heaven has liberated. Their hands weren't strong enough to hold what the divine placed in motion. And in trying, all they did was orchestrate their own downfall. Let's see the last part and complete the essay. Number 10. The torture you endured became evidence for judgment. The torture you endured became evidence for judgment, and that's where their arrogance will end. They thought your suffering was invisible, that it would vanish, be covered over, or be rewritten by their lies. They laughed while you cried, thinking no one was keeping score. But every tear, bruise, humiliation was being preserved as evidence, not against you, but against them. Nothing was wasted. Nothing went unseen. Every moment of cruelty became a recorded testimony. Divine justice doesn't need rumor or human witnesses. Heaven doesn't operate on speculation, it operates on proof. The evidence is built on undeniable reality. They can deny what they did, pretend it wasn't as bad, or try to manipulate others, but none of that erases the file heaven has on them. That file is complete, unalterable damning. The irony is that the very things they thought would weaken you are strengthening the case against them. They mocked your tears, but each one became a piece of evidence. They laughed at your pain, but each scar became a line in the testimony. The same history they hoped you'd bury has been building the foundation of their judgment. And when that judgment falls, it won't be light or arguable. It will be final. They won't be able to talk their way out, because judgment in heaven's court isn't based on perception. It's based on truth. The punishment is measured, precise, undeniable. While they thought they were writing your end, they were writing their own verdict. The torture you endured was never wasted. It was being gathered as evidence. And when the time comes that evidence won't whisper, it will roar, sealing their fate with irrefutable proof. You see, remarkable one, what they did to you wasn't going to vanish. Every plot, every act of cruelty was recorded. They mistook silence for approval, patience for weakness, and you for ordinary. But in every step, the scales of justice were tipping. Now that weight is crashing down, and they're realizing they lit a fire they can't put out. Your survival is proof of divine backing, and their collapse is instruction. Through you, the divine is showing that exceptional souls don't fall by the hands of those who hate them. Instead, their enemies dig their own graves, summon storms they can't withstand, and end up as lessons carved into history. So walk boldly, because your story isn't defeat but elevation. What was once torture has become testimony. What was once their victory dance has become their funeral song. And what they thought was the end of you has become the end of them. The end of them. The end of them, the end of them. Welcome the divinely inspired. Never attempt to eclipse the sun. The endeavor will leave you blinded and exhausted. Consider this: scientific research suggests that the human body generates approximately 100 watts of power through simple existence. This is sufficient to illuminate a standard light bulb. However, for those chosen, those with a unique destiny, we speak of megawatt energy, an unmatched force. A power that cannot be purchased, imitated, or borrowed without risking catastrophic failure, yet they invariably emerge. The emulators, the dreamers, those who witness your radiance and declare, yes, I can achieve that as well. The critical flaw, they perceive your energy as a mere affectation donned each morning like a familiar garment. They fail to comprehend that it is the culmination of battles fought, storms weathered, and a divinely bestowed spiritual charge. They proceed to amplify their output, but instead of emitting a brilliant glow, they overheat, flicker erratically, and appear in all candor ludicrous. The crucial distinction lies here. When individuals attempt to replicate your frequency without having traversed your unique path, they generate only dissonance. They may mimic your words, emulate your style, even adopt your gait, but the profound essence that constitutes your being untouchable. Consequently, they resemble counterfeit luxury goods amidst a collection of authentic masterpieces. They imagine they are seamlessly integrated, yet their disparity is glaring to all. Today we will dissect precisely why their attempts to mirror your movement, speech, and radiance fail so dramatically. We will reveal why no amount of imitation can rival the original design imprinted upon your soul by a higher power. Firstly, they endeavor to operate on a power source they do not possess. Their deficiency is perpetually evident. Your energy is not an acquisition like a fleeting trend. It is not a skill acquired through a workshop or a transient motivational boost. It is inherent within your very being, the consequence of years of trials, metamorphoses, and a divine architecture you neither requested nor sought, but were destined to bear. Individuals witness the manifestation of this power. The manner in which you enter a room and subtly alter the atmosphere without uttering a single word evokes the thought, I am capable of that. However, they overlook the fact that they are pursuing an effect devoid of the underlying cause. It is akin to holding a cellular device without access to a charger. Inevitably, the screen will darken. Your energy reserves were replenished by experiences they have not undergone. Every heartbreak, every moment of uncertainty, every quiet triumph achieved in solitude, unseen and unacknowledged. These are the origins of your inner strength. Your present state is not a spontaneous occurrence. You have been configured to function at an elevated capacity because life has mandated it. This capacity is impervious to instruction, lending, or theft, regardless of how meticulously they mimic your mannerisms or repeated phrases. Their attempts to replicate your energy invariably appear awkward as they are forcing what flows naturally for you. You move with a grace born of alignment, not exertion. They are striving, overcompensating, and ultimately depleting themselves. Their intentions are not malicious. They are, however, attempting to navigate a path not destined for them. They misconstrue the situation as a matter of personality when it is in actuality a question of power supply. The remarkable aspect of a chosen one's energy is its inherent capacity for self-renewal, as its source transcends individual limitations. You can endure trials and emerge still radiant, as your energy reserve is not dependent on circumstances. It is sustained by destiny. Meanwhile, they rely on external affirmation, superficial praise, and fleeting bursts of motivation to sustain their momentum. Without an audience, their inner light diminishes. Without recognition, they enter a state of dormancy. Therefore, while they can replicate the gestures, the style, the intonation, they will invariably fail to sustain the output because they are connected to a power source that was never theirs to begin with. Sooner or later, the disparity between consistent power and a sputtering flame becomes conspicuous to all. Secondly, their assurance is a fabrication, whereas yours is an inherited trait. This aspect will forever elude their replication, regardless of how persuasive they attempt to appear, how confidently they carry themselves, how fashionable their attire, or how swaggering their demeanor. It is merely an affectation akin to clothing that is discarded at the end of the day. Your confidence is not superficial, it is intrinsic. It is not a theatrical performance. It is a consequence of survival. It was cultivated during periods of deprivation when your resilience was your sole resource, when life stripped you bare and compelled you to choose between resilience and capitulation. As a result, your assurance is unwavering. It does not surge when observed and dissipate when unobserved. It is not contingent upon applause, recognition, or external validation. It is founded upon an understanding of your identity and your accomplishments. There is no need to prove yourself, as your self-awareness is absolute. This self-awareness radiates in ways that defy imitation. When they attempt to replicate it, the imperfections are always detectable. Their nonverbal communication is inconsistent. Their timing is forced. Their presence appears borrowed. Confidence is often mistaken for vociferousness, but yours is independent of volume. In fact, your periods of repose are often the most impactful, as your presence carries significant weight. This is an attribute that cannot be feigned. When they attempt to emulate it, they invariably overcompensate, engage in excessive verbiage, exert excessive effort, or fabricate scenarios to inflate their stature. The more they attempt to resemble you, the more apparent it becomes that their self-assurance is derived externally. The truth is, your self-assurance has been acquired through tribulations, development, and self-respect accumulated over time. You have been present in settings where you were out of place and yet maintained your composure. You have endured losses and maintained your dignity. This leaves an indelible mark that defies replication through imitation. They may possess the costume, but they lack the lineage. This is the essential difference. A costume is removable, but lineage is immutable. When it is intrinsic, it is permanent. When it is external, it is ephemeral. No matter how diligently they attempt to replicate your energy, the deception will eventually be exposed and the disparity will become self-evident. Thirdly, they are performing for an audience you have long since outgrown. Their efforts to replicate your energy invariably appear insincere for this reason. You no longer derive sustenance from the approval of others. You have progressed beyond the need for validation to ascertain your worth. Your self-esteem is now anchored in purpose, not in the volume of applause received. This shift is transformative because when you enter a room, you are not seeking to impress. You are simply present. This presence, this composed equanimity defies imitation. For them, the performance is paramount. They are constantly attuned to the audience, not merely literally, but also emotionally. They require observation, validation, and affirmation of their success. Without such validation, their energy becomes unstable. It is as if they require a spotlight to function. You, however, have learned to radiate light even in the absence of illumination. The result is that they expend their energy attempting to maintain an image while you merely exist in your authenticity regardless of observation. The difference is that you have already reached the critical realization that not everyone will applaud you, and you are content with this reality. You have endured periods of prolonged effort without applause, acknowledgement, or encouragement. In this space, you discovered a profound truth: your intrinsic worth is not determined by the attention you receive. Once you have experienced this level of liberation, you cannot revert to requiring constant validation. This is where their efforts are undermined. When they attempt to resemble you, they are still performing for the audience, and their energy fluctuates accordingly. Yours remains constant. You present yourself authentically regardless of the size of the audience because your authenticity is immutable. This consistency is captivating and engenders trust. Your authenticity is irrefutable. Ultimately, their energy is dependent on external affirmation while yours is fueled by self-awareness. This explains why they deplete their energy attempting to maintain parity. You have learned to thrive independently of an audience, a capability that defies imitation. Because the moment the audience departs, so too does their self-assurance. Fourthly, they are drowning in the very waters you have learned to navigate. They are drowning in the waters you have mastered, and this is the fundamental distinction. Your exposure to hardship was not transient, it was prolonged. You are familiar with the currents, the undercurrents, the abrupt depths, and the latent perils that remain imperceptible until it is too late. The very waters that terrify them have taught you how to navigate without succumbing to panic. You have learned how to locate air in inhospitable environments and how to maintain your equilibrium amidst chaos. You have been transformed. You have emerged with a form of strength that is subdued yet unmistakable. They often mistake your serenity as inherent. They misconstrue your composure under duress as an innate personality trait. They observe your seamless navigation of difficulties and assume you are fortunate or indifferent. What they fail to perceive is that this ease was earned. It is the culmination of countless moments in which adaptation was the only alternative to annihilation. You have learned to conserve energy amidst turbulence, to maintain focus amidst chaos, and to trust your instincts amidst uncertainty. When they attempt to replicate this strength without the corresponding experiences, they cannot sustain it. The moment the waters become turbulent, they gasp for air, thrash about in search of stability, and betray their lack of composure. You conversely navigate with economical movements, avoiding unnecessary panic. This distinguishes those who have been trained by necessity from those who have merely observed from a distance. This is why they regard you with both admiration and resentment. They desire your ability to remain composed amidst adversity, but they do not desire the adversity itself. They aspire to the grace without the grind. They covet the breathing technique without experiencing the associated deprivation of air. It is not, however, so simple. What they misinterpret as charisma is in reality a survival mechanism honed to perfection. Regardless of how diligently they attempt to replicate it, the truth will emerge the moment the waters rise. Fifthly, They are replicating the fruit without cultivating the tree. They are attempting to replicate the fruit without cultivating the underlying tree, which is why their efforts are ephemeral. Your charisma, your quiet authority, and your effortless command of a room are not spontaneous occurrences. They are the visible manifestation of years of discipline, self-denial, and unwavering constancy. You have labored in obscurity. You have made difficult choices when expediency dictated otherwise. You have cultivated a root system capable of withstanding storms, droughts, and seasons of apparent dormancy. Your fruit is genuine, enduring, and nourishing. When they attempt to imitate you, they concentrate solely on the visible manifestations. They desire your results without the corresponding efforts. They desire your aura without your alignment. They attempt to adorn your radiance as if it were a mere accessory. But because they have not performed the requisite groundwork, their fruit is devoid of vitality. It is analogous to the use of wax fruit as decoration. They may appear appealing from a distance, but upon closer inspection, they lack flavor, sustenance, and authenticity. Your energy is distinct because it is connected to a source. Every pronouncement and every gesture is supported by the roots you have cultivated through introspection, abstinence from detrimental habits, acceptance of difficult lessons, and the refinement of your character. You have performed the digging, the watering, and the pruning. Even amidst adversity, you can still produce something valuable. For them, it is exclusively a performance. They may emulate your style, adopt your vocabulary, or replicate your movements. However, because they are disconnected from any genuine root system, their imitations quickly deteriorate. They become depleted and are exposed. Individuals discern the disparity between cultivated and manufactured fruit. This obviates the need for competition with mere imitation. Time will reveal the truth. Genuine fruit will withstand the test of time, nourish others, and multiply due to its inherent vitality. And when the roots are deeply entrenched, the tree has no fear of the wind. They fail to comprehend that you have cultivated roots, not merely branches. This explains your sustained presence and their futile attempts to reattach fallen leaves. Sixthly, they fail to recognize that your energy is more than a mood. It is authority. They fail to understand that your energy is more than a mood. It is authority, and this is a divide they can never bridge. No matter how closely they scrutinize you, they perceive energy as mere enthusiasm, charisma, or calculated behavior. They believe it is related to personality quirks, nonverbal communication, and clever wordplay. But for you, it is not performance. It is presence. Your energy does not merely enter the room, it commands the room. It is not your intention to dominate. It is that you possess an inherent weight that subtly alters the atmosphere. This is the distinction between mood and authority. The former is transient and self-generated. The latter is rooted in something higher. Your authority is not a conscious decision. It was forged through trials, affirmed through resilience, and ratified by divine decree. This is why it does not falter in times of fatigue, indifference, or adversity. Your certainty is self-evident and acknowledged spiritually and psychologically. Individuals may not comprehend their differential response to you, but it is instinctive. Genuine authority does not request permission. It is acknowledged without explicit pronouncement. Attempts to replicate this invariably fail. They may mimic your speech patterns, adopt your facial expressions, and even replicate your posture. However, because they lack the requisite authority, their efforts appear contrived, like an actor portraying a role they do not fully comprehend. Individuals will perceive the disparity immediately, even if they cannot articulate it. They may remark, "Something feels off." They are sensing the absence of legitimacy. Mood can be manufactured, authority cannot. Mood fluctuates based on feelings, environment, and events. Authority is immutable. You can maintain a quiet demeanor and command respect, while they can be vociferous and be ignored. The inherent weight you bear was acquired through adherence to your purpose, through scars transformed into wisdom, through steadfastness in times of adversity. This renders their imitations parodies. They are attempting to adorn something that cannot be worn. You can assume a mood, but authority is inherent. It is either present or absent. Seventhly, their aura is painted, whereas yours is inhabited. Their aura is merely cosmetic, while yours is intrinsic. This distinction cannot be concealed through style or presentation. They may adopt your appearance, emulate your vernacular, mimic your cadence, and even rehearse your mannerisms. They are, however, merely applying paint to an empty canvas. It may appear convincing from a distance, but a closer examination reveals a lack of depth, texture, and history. Your aura, in contrast, is a composite of your life experiences. The triumphs, the sorrows, the internal struggles, and the unnoticed victories. It is like a familiar garment that is adapted to your form over time, molded to your life in a manner that defies replication. It bears the imprint of your past, the wear of your tribulations, and the serenity of self-knowledge. It is not a recent acquisition. It has accompanied you through trials that have tested you, and this history has bestowed upon it an undeniable authenticity. When they attempt to emulate you, they focus on the external. They believe mastery of appearance, demeanor, and external energy will elicit a similar response. However, a superficial aura is susceptible to damage. It will deteriorate under pressure. It will reveal the underlying vacuity when the paint begins to chip. Individuals may be unable to articulate the precise reasons for the difference, but they will sense it. Your aura will not fade because it is inherent, not superficial. It is reflected in your demeanor even when no one is observing. It is the immutable nature of your energy regardless of external validation. It is intrinsic. This authenticity is inherently captivating. Regardless of how meticulously they replicate your style, it will never be as impactful. An aura that is merely painted may be visually appealing, but an aura that is intrinsic is potent. The cosmetic will fade, the intrinsic will endure, and permanence will always supersede performance. Eighthly, they are overheating because they are forcing a frequency. They are depleting their energy reserves because they are forcing a frequency that is not their own, and it is exhausting them in ways they will not acknowledge. You operate in a space that is aligned with your calling, allowing your energy to flow unhindered. It is not a matter of generating enthusiasm or staging a performance. It is about synchronizing with your identity and your purpose. This alignment obviates the need for forced magnetism. It is your inherent state. For them, it is a constant upward struggle. They must exert, exaggerate, and overcompensate to attain your natural state. They generate transient enthusiasm that is unsustainable, resulting in rapid burnout. Their attempts at radiance are fleeting and their personalities oscillate. This is the result of operating at a frequency that is not their own. It drains them rather than replenishing them. Your energy functions differently. It is sustained by authenticity and purpose. You are merely existing, not forcing. You can maintain a steady presence regardless of external circumstances. You have learned to operate from a place of alignment, eliminating the need for simulated momentum. This is why your energy is more trustworthy. It is consistent. When they attempt to maintain parity, their inconsistency is exposed. Individuals will discern the fluctuations. Their instability will be obvious. Your steadfastness highlights their instability without any effort on your part. Their superficial light sputters due to reliance on borrowed power. Genuine alignment generates effortless frequency while imitation is exhausting. Inevitably, the disparity will become apparent. You will sustain your momentum while they falter, perplexed by your ability to persevere. The explanation is simple. You are not forcing anything. You were designed for this, and that defies imitation. Ninthly, they mistake your serenity for a mere facade. They mistake your serenity for something that can be feigned, and that is their fundamental error. Your serenity is not an absence of activity. It is an affirmation of certainty. You do not rush to prove yourself. You do not seize every opportunity for recognition. You do not fill every silence with superficial pronouncements. Your inherent composure stems from self-awareness, a sense of purpose, and an understanding of your values. It is an earned attribute acquired through trials that have taught you how to remain steadfast amidst adversity. Their attempts to replicate this are unsuccessful. They appear passive, disinterested, or disconnected. You are strategically poised. You maintain your position in anticipation of the opportune moment. Their version is stagnation, ineffectually disguised as confidence. The difference is that your composure radiates assurance while theirs exudes uncertainty. The truth that underpins stillness is perceptible. Individuals can sense the foundation of experience that validates calmness or its absence. Your serenity has been tested. You have faced challenges that would have overwhelmed most, and yet you remained centered. This history resides within your energy, making your composure captivating. Their version lacks this foundation. It is merely superficial, based on the assumption that feigned indifference will convey control. When pressure is applied, the facade crumbles. They become restless, fidgety, and reactive. You, in contrast, can wait without losing focus, differentiating between patience and procrastination. This is where their imitation fails. Stillness devoid of certainty is merely inaction. Yours is imbued with the weight of wisdom, patience, and faith in timing. Theirs is merely a temporary affectation. Individuals will always discern the difference between feigned and genuine composure. Tenthly, they are promoting a version of themselves they cannot afford to sustain. They are selling a version of themselves that cannot be sustained, and that becomes evident when life demands payment. Replicating your energy is not about imitation. It is costly in ways most are unprepared for. Not in monetary terms, but in the emotional and spiritual price required to carry yourself in this manner. Your energy was purchased through tribulations that fostered growth, errors that engendered wisdom, and seasons of rebuilding from nothing. You have already remitted the full amount, and you now carry yourself effortlessly. They are attempting to mimic the appearance without having engaged the requisite process. They desire the confidence without having experienced the rejection that molded it. They desire the grace without the storms that taught it. They desire the authority without the sacrifices that earned it. They are attempting to sell a counterfeit. It may appear authentic in fleeting encounters, but it will fail the test. Life will send a bill. It will come in the form of setbacks, challenges, and moments that strip away the facade to reveal the underlying reality. When the invoice arrives, they will lack the resources to pay it. Their energy collapses under duress due to its reliance on performance, not authenticity. You, in contrast, have weathered sufficient adversity to know that you will remain standing regardless. You are not attempting to maintain a facade. You are simply embodying your intrinsic identity. So in essence, what we've explored today is that true power, real radiance, isn't about mimicry or affectation. It's about the unique journey you've walked, the battles you've fought, and the divine spark within you that can't be copied or faked. Don't be discouraged by those who try to imitate. Their efforts will always fall short because they lack the foundation you've painstakingly built. Embrace your authenticity, nurture your energy, and shine your light brightly, knowing that your worth is inherent and your path is your own. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you encountered situations where you've seen this play out? Or perhaps you have questions about how to better cultivate your own authentic energy? Leave a comment below and let's get a conversation going. And if you found this helpful or inspiring, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. I'm always exploring ways to help you connect with your inner power and live your most authentic life. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Welcome, dearly beloved champions of destiny. Some pivotal moments are so profound, so transformative, even the celestial spheres can't remain still. Pause and contemplate that for a moment. We're speaking of decisions that ignite a symphony of heavenly approval, stirring the very essence of angelic beings, their wings resonating with a chorus of acclamation like the most thunderous ovation imaginable. This isn't about earthly accolades, fleeting victories, or transient social media triumphs. It's about you. Consider this: within the vast expanse of the unseen world, not every action resonates with equal significance. Many endeavors barely cause a ripple in the cosmic tapestry. But then there are extraordinary instances, rare junctures where a single choice, a solitary step reverberates with such force that it triggers a celestial eruption. That's precisely what you've just accomplished. And the intriguing aspect: from an earthly perspective, it may have appeared modest, understated, even commonplace. Those around you might have questioned its impact, perceiving it as insignificant. But the spiritual domain witnessed the profound truth. You didn't merely execute a move. You reshaped the very trajectory of your future. Your triumph wasn't predicated on audacity, flamboyance, or deceit. Your victory stemmed from a mastery akin to a seasoned chess strategist envisioning the checkmate sequence 12 moves in advance while your adversary remains fixated on capturing a mere pawn. And indeed, if you harbor curiosity, the angels did rise to their feet in your honor, a spectacle both awe-inspiring and somewhat humorous. Celestial entities renowned for their impeccable composure suddenly galvanized, exclaiming, "Did you witness that remarkable, utterly remarkable?" Prepare yourselves, for as you fully grasp the magnitude of heaven's jubilant response, you'll comprehend that your recent maneuver wasn't simply a win. It was a transcendent display of spiritual prowess. Firstly, you executed a move discernible only to the discerning eye. Your latest decision may not have garnered headlines in the earthly realm, yet it ignited shockwaves throughout the unseen, eluding detection by those lacking spiritual perception. Superficially, it appeared innocuous, a routine step, perhaps even a course of action anticipated by some. However, in actuality, that move was meticulously calculated, purposeful, and deeply strategic. It wasn't born of impulsive reaction or desperation. It emerged from a reservoir of insight inaccessible to most. You perceived an opportunity veiled to others and acted decisively without fanfare. That explains the intensity of heaven's reaction. When something remains veiled to the untrained eye, it possesses an uncanny ability to bypass earthly opposition. The adversary cannot target what they fail to recognize as a threat, and your move was cunningly concealed in plain sight. Those surrounding you may have been preoccupied with trivialities, ego-driven pursuits, or superficial theatrics, oblivious to the profound shift that transpired. Precisely as you intended, you sought neither their endorsement, comprehension, nor applause. Your sole objective was to execute it flawlessly, and you succeeded. This was no action destined for trending status or immediate accolades. Indeed, some may have perceived it as unremarkable, even passive. Yet the angels recognized the weight of what you dismantled. They witnessed the chains dissolving in your wake. They foresaw the ripple effect cascading into your future. They averted a trap through wisdom, not emotional impulse. Executing invisible moves demands a level of maturity attained by few. It's facile to orchestrate grand theatrical displays to assert dominance. It's straightforward to wage battles publicly, showcasing courage for all to witness. However, it's an entirely different feat to maneuver with such precision, such calculated restraint, that the adversary comprehends their defeat only after the game has concluded. See, that's the realm in which you operated. Hence, the angels didn't merely offer a smile or nod. They stood in reverence. They beheld someone who refused to adhere to conventional norms, someone who moved in such harmonious alignment with divine timing that victory was secured before the battle's shift became apparent. You didn't simply make a move. You made the move, and heaven ensured its recognition. Secondly, you severed a generational chain that would have constrained future generations. Your action transcended merely resolving a personal dilemma. It involved dismantling a legacy of constraints that had plagued your lineage for years, perhaps even generations. Many contend for superficial relief, patching up cracks, concealing issues, and hoping for temporary respite. You delved deeper. You shunned the notion of merely treating symptoms. You relentlessly pursued the underlying cause. Hence your recent move carried such immense spiritual significance. Generational chains are insidious, masquerading as the way things are. Entrenched thought patterns, recurring cycles of adversity, self-destructive habits, unspoken familial rules upheld without questioning their origins. Breaking these chains isn't merely arduous, it's perilous, confronting a presence that has occupied a comfortable position within your ancestry for decades. Most avoid it altogether, deeming it too messy, too costly. But you resolved to break the cycle. Upon making that move, you didn't simply distance yourself from a toxic pattern. You slammed the door shut with such force that its resurgence is now improbable. Hence the angels' resounding ovation. They celebrated not only your personal victory, but also the liberation bestowed upon all who follow, enabling them to tread a cleaner, more liberated path. The move you executed didn't merely alter your narrative, it rewrote the family saga. Such a breakthrough invariably comes at a considerable cost. You endured misunderstanding, perhaps even ridicule from those you sought to liberate. You resisted immense pressure to abandon the endeavor or accept the status quo. You persisted, recognizing that prolonged tolerance would only allow the insidious cycle to further entrench itself in subsequent generations. It requires extraordinary courage to wage a battle for which you may never receive due credit. Your descendants, nieces, nephews, and generations yet unborn will experience greater serenity because of your actions, even if they remain unaware of your role. Hence the applause emanated from heaven, not from earth. The chains you shattered didn't simply vanish, they disintegrated in a manner precluding their identical reconstruction. Your victory extended far beyond personal gain, encompassing an entire bloodline, an achievement worthy of a standing ovation from the highest echelons of existence. Thirdly, you maneuvered without announcing your intentions. Your silent execution was the key to its efficacy. In a world accustomed to broadcasting every intention before taking the first step, you chose a divergent path. You offered no hints, left no clues, and afforded no opportunity for preemptive countermeasures. You acted discreetly, and by the time your actions became apparent, the task was already accomplished. Such a level of discipline remains elusive to many. Moving without fanfare isn't merely about secrecy for its own sake. It's about safeguarding what's sacred until it's robust enough to withstand scrutiny. Premature exposure can doom a plan more swiftly than any adversary. Each premature disclosure invites doubt, sabotage, and distractions. You grasped this, hence the purity of your maneuver. It materialized fully formed, devoid of external interference. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. You refrained from self-promotion or asserting your significance. You trusted your move to speak for itself when the opportune moment arrived. This impeded your adversary's ability to prepare or obstruct your progress. By the time the results materialized, any attempts to reverse the situation were futile. The game concluded before they even recognized its commencement. Such restraint necessitates more fortitude than most realize. It entails suppressing excitement, refraining from sharing triumphs prematurely. It entails biting your tongue when confronted with skepticism, knowing you possess the means to refute it instantly, yet choosing not to. It entails bearing the burden of your decision alone until the opportune moment to reveal it arrives. This isn't facile, yet it's the reason it succeeded. The angels recognized the wisdom in your timing. They observed not only your action but also its precision. They witnessed your avoidance of traps set in your path stemming from your refusal to disclose your intended course of action. That's why heaven applauded not merely for making a move but for executing it in a manner that left the adversary without recourse. Fourthly, you staunchly refused to barter your integrity for transient gain. An easy victory beckoned one that would have enhanced your image momentarily and silenced your detractors instantly. It lay within reach. All that was required was a slight compromise, a bending of your values to suit the situation, and you could have claimed a swift triumph. Yet you resisted. You chose the more arduous path. You opted to safeguard your integrity even at a cost. That's uncommon, and that's what reverberated throughout the heavens. Transient victories are seductive, promising immediate relief, accolades, and validation. They whisper, "No one will ever know," or "It's not such a grave matter." In the moment, it may seem pragmatic or strategic. Yet you understood a deeper truth. The instant you relinquish your integrity, you exchange something priceless for something disposable. You knew that once you crossed that line, repeating the transgression becomes easier until the boundary itself blurs beyond recognition. You refused to take that risk. You shunned bribery, flattery, and shortcuts. You refused to cede autonomy over your decisions in exchange for fleeting advantages. You refused to sell your convictions for the comfort of immediate triumph. You were willing to accept a momentary setback to preserve the long-term victory that cannot be taken away. That's what imbued your move with such power. The angels beheld the temptation you faced and witnessed your unwavering retreat, your integrity intact. They saw that you considered not only expediency but also eternity. You proved that your convictions were not for sale, regardless of the allure of the offer. Such choices often cast you as the fool in the short term. People may assume you missed an opportunity or played into your own detriment, but time will unveil the truth. The fleeting gain you rejected would have corrupted you from within. Instead, you retained what mattered most: your soul, your peace, and your unshakable character. Such decisions elicit a standing ovation from heaven, for your victory transcends the ephemeral, resonating for eternity. Fifthly, you chose the battle that targeted the root cause, not merely the symptom. Most pursue what's visible, combating flare-ups, overt pain, and superficial issues that are easily identified and blamed. That's why many victories are short-lived, merely offering temporary respite disguised as solutions. You resisted that trap. You shunned wasting energy on symptoms when you recognized the true adversary lurked deeper. You possessed the patience and courage to target the source, even though the battle would be more challenging, protracted, and uncomfortable. The battle you chose lacked glamour, offering neither quick gratification nor immediate accolades. It often appeared as though you were losing as you bypassed the easy targets that others pursued. Yet you understood better. You comprehended that if the root remained untouched, the problem would resurface stronger, smarter, and more entrenched. Hence, you willingly absorbed the blows, endured the criticism, and persevered through the pain. Your objective wasn't merely temporary relief. It was enduring freedom. Targeting the root necessitates more than courage. It demands clarity. You had to penetrate distractions, manipulation, and even your own longing for immediate comfort. It means being strategic enough to discern when not to expend energy and disciplined enough to remain resolute when others clamor for a quick fix. Such discipline is avoided by most as it entails heightened discomfort before improvement. You accepted that discomfort. You understood that temporary suffering was a worthwhile price to pay to eradicate the problem permanently. That decision wasn't solely personal. It was generational. By uprooting the disease, you prevented its further spread into your life, your relationships, and the lives of those who would follow. The angels witnessed all of this. They acknowledged the weight you carried and the wisdom of your aim. They saw that you sought more than mere survival. You aspired to be truly and completely free. Because you fought for the cure rather than settling for relief. Heaven's applause wasn't merely for your victory. It was for the permanence of what you secured. Sixthly, you departed without carrying the poison. Walking away is one thing, but walking away untainted is altogether different. Many leave detrimental situations burdened by invisible baggage, resentment, anger, the incessant need to assert their righteousness. They may physically distance themselves, yet remain emotionally tethered to what wounded them. That's how bitterness propagates and how the poison of the past contaminates the present. You resisted that. You didn't simply depart. You left without carrying the contamination with you. It would have been facile to endlessly replay the offenses, dwelling on the perceived unfairness, sharpening your words for the opportune moment to retaliate. Yet you resisted. You prioritized peace over retribution, healing over harboring grievances. You comprehended that harboring such poison doesn't punish those who inflicted harm. It slowly consumes you. Leaving untainted required relinquishing more than just individuals. It required releasing the narrative in your mind, the yearning for closure on your terms, the fantasy of an apology and acknowledgement of wrongdoing. You accepted the possibility of never receiving such validation and departed regardless. Such strength cannot be feigned. Leaving without bitterness severs the energetic ties that bind you. You no longer react to them, no longer shape your choices based on their actions, no longer allow them to dictate the tone of your life. You didn't simply embark on a new chapter. You did so without carrying the infection of the past. The angels honored that, for leaving untainted signifies a higher form of victory. Anyone can retaliate. Anyone can harbor anger. Yet it takes a rare soul to break free and preserve the purity of their heart. That's when you become truly untouchable. You could have carried the poison and still progressed, but that would have undermined your escape. By refusing to carry it, you denied your past the power to pursue you. Hence, heaven celebrated not simply your departure, but your wholeness. Seventhly, you risked being misunderstood indefinitely. You made a decision knowing full well that many would never perceive its true essence. You knew that regardless of your explanations, regardless of the clarity of your reasons, some would distort, judge, or outright fabricate narratives, yet you proceeded. That exemplifies a rare form of courage, one that values truth above image, the mission above personal reputation. Most base their decisions on perceived optics, weighing not only outcomes but also appearances. They desire not only to be right but also to be seen as right. You relinquished that luxury. You comprehended that at times truth and image are irreconcilable, one destined to yield to the other. You chose truth even if it meant bearing lifelong scars in certain circles. This entailed more than a willingness to be misunderstood. It entailed accepting permanent misinterpretation. You accepted that some would construct their version of events and propagate it as fact, that whispers and rumors might eclipse the reality of what transpired. You allowed the chatter, understanding that your task wasn't to correct every mouth, but to act according to divine principles and your conscience. Prioritizing truth above image exacts a high price. It can sever relationships, limit opportunities, and even compromise safety. It can exile you from familiar settings and cast you as an outsider among former acquaintances. Yet you refuse to allow fear of such loss to govern your actions. You refuse to barter your authenticity for acceptance. The angels witnessed that sacrifice, the quiet isolation of traversing a path where applause is absent, but divine approval endures. They beheld your steadfastness amidst false narratives, trusting that the eternal record would preserve your truth. Some victories manifest immediately, others require time. You embraced the latter, securing an enduring triumph, even if portrayed as the villain in another's narrative. Heaven rose to its feet in recognition of that integrity. Eighthly, your decision lacked the validation of human applause. You executed a move not designed for earthly admiration. It garnered no trending status, possessed no glamour, and inspired no accolades. In fact, you anticipated that the choice would either pass unnoticed or be questioned by those lacking comprehension. Yet you sought no human applause. You sought alignment with righteousness, irrespective of the silence. Most are propelled by external validation, craving affirmation from those around them. While this isn't inherently detrimental, it's perilous when it becomes the driving force. You transcended that. You acted knowing that recognition would elude you. You acted because heaven demanded it. Devoid of an audience, your motives were exposed, revealing whether your actions were driven by righteousness or convenience. You proved your willingness to endure hardship without the comfort of recognition. That's spiritual maturity in its purest form, obedience without external validation. This is what resonates within the unseen realm. Heaven values intention, not audience size. The angels saw that you didn't wait for public affirmation. They saw that you were willing to risk invisibility for divine alignment. Such actions liberate you from the constraints of people-pleasing. You transcend trends, opinions, and the superficial lure of validation. Your compass aligns with something higher, something steadier. This move, though subtle on earth, was thunderous in heaven. No standing ovation from people, but one from the celestial realm. And that applause endures longer than earthly acclaim. You didn't act without applause, you acted without needing it. That's the kind of victory that echoes in eternity. Ninthly, you became the answer to an unspoken prayer. Your move extended beyond personal triumph, becoming the solution to prayers unheard and problems unknown. Your impact stretched beyond measure. You became the breakthrough that others sought even if they were strangers. Beneath life's surface, battles rage unseen. People pray for relief, change, and seemingly impossible answers. Your profound move answered those prayers without your knowledge. You shifted energies and shattered strongholds. Your actions rippled through unseen communities. This impact requires pure alignment, not recognition. You didn't seek validation, you simply moved, trusting even when unclear. The result was immense. The angels applauded. They saw how your move untied knots, healed wounds, and freed spirits. Your action unlocked chains for silent souls. This is both a blessing and a responsibility. Your choices affect many. You are healing unseen communities. Heaven's applause is proof that you've become exactly what was needed. Tenthly, you withstood a blow that would have broken others. You stood strong. Your strength held space. Others would have crumbled, but you survived. You endured without losing yourself, bearing burdens that would have destroyed lesser souls. You became a shield. The spiritual realm took note. Every ounce of pain was recorded. You didn't run. So in essence, what we've uncovered is this. Even when it feels like no one's watching, even when your actions seem small or go unnoticed, you have the power to create truly profound change. You have the power to break cycles, heal generations, and move in alignment with a higher purpose. Don't underestimate the impact of your quiet victories, your unseen acts of integrity. They resonate far beyond what you can imagine. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What's a silent victory you've experienced in your own life? What resonated most with you from this message? Leave a comment down below. Let's get the conversation going. And if you found this helpful or inspiring, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future explorations into the unseen forces shaping our lives. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. Welcome the chosen generation. Be mindful of whom you dismiss. They might just resurrect into the very manifestation of what you ultimately seek. They didn't simply misunderstand you, they prematurely wrote you off. But surprise, you were not defeated. You were merely gestating, awaiting your season. Now they're stunned, grappling with the realization, could it have been you all along? Here's the truth they struggle to voice. The very ones who once scoffed at your aspirations, mocked your quiet strength, and whispered your name with derision, are now the ones who blush in your presence, obsessively track your progress, and stumble over their words when your name arises in conversation. Why? Because what they once deemed ordinary was in fact extraordinary. And here's an undeniable truth. Behavioral scientists recognize that initial judgments are often skewed, often projecting more about the observer than the observed. Therefore, in their hasty judgment, they were not truly seeing you. They were projecting their own fears, inadequacies, and internal turmoil onto your serene countenance. Now they attempt to feign innocence as if they never doubted you, never ridiculed you, never treated you as an afterthought. It's ironic how not my type can swiftly transform into perhaps we were destined to be, when divine favor elevates your existence. And let's acknowledge the awkward irony. The same individuals who labeled you as excessive are now secretly envisioning a future alongside you, meticulously orchestrating accidental encounters, O Blessed One. This transcends mere attraction. It is a revelation. The veil has been lifted, and now they perceive the essence of who you are. Let us dissect why they were so quick to judge and why they are now falling so rapidly. Settle in. This exploration promises to be beautifully uncomfortable. Firstly, they judged the outer package without recognizing that you were the priceless treasure within. They assessed you solely on superficial appearances. Your attire, your mode of transportation, your professional title, your quiet demeanor as you navigate the world. They scanned you as if you were a commodity, failing to grasp that they lacked the discernment to evaluate your worth. To them, you were just another ordinary individual. Someone who didn't overtly flaunt success, didn't crave validation, didn't conform to societal norms. However, you were far more than a product on display. You were the inheritance they unknowingly passed by. You refrained from ostentation because you felt no need. You weren't driven to prove yourself, and that bewildered them. In a culture consumed by branding and self-promotion, your stillness unnerved them. Your humility appeared as inadequacy. Your silence was mistaken for weakness. Yet now they are discovering that what they perceived as unremarkable was precisely what they desperately needed. The reality is that people only perceive what they are ready to acknowledge. They judged your outward appearance oblivious to the depth within. They believed you were replaceable until they encountered replacements who couldn't bear the weight of what you carry. Now they realized that you weren't just another face in the crowd. You were the singular presence that held genuine value in their lives. You possessed the soul, the unwavering loyalty, the astute discernment, the inner peace they've been fruitlessly seeking in countless others. They overlooked you because you didn't loudly proclaim your potential. You were potential understated, genuine, powerful. But they were too preoccupied with the clamor to recognize it. Now witnessing you radiate without seeking validation, heal without seeking retribution, and ascend without seeking to prove them wrong, it's impacting them far more profoundly than anticipated. They're beginning to comprehend that they judged the wrapping without unwrapping the gift, and now that the gift has slipped away, they are replaying every instance where they could have shown you greater kindness. They are watching you evolve into everything they believed you could never be. And it's shaking them to their core because they know deep down that the one they dismissed was the one destined to bless them, and now they cannot deny it. Secondly, their ego misinterpreted your energy. Now their spirit yearns for it. Upon your initial encounter, they were too self-absorbed to truly see you. Their ego preceded them into the room. They assessed your presence through a lens of superiority, assuming you were inferior because you didn't exude power or seek attention. They believed your quietness indicated a lack of substance. They assumed your gentleness meant you were unwilling to dominate the conversation. What they failed to recognize was that your energy wasn't loud. It was profound. And now, they crave it. Your calm unsettled them in ways they didn't comprehend at the time, undermining their sense of security, even though they would never admit it, because you didn't engage in competition. You didn't chase after them. nor did you feel compelled to over-explain yourself. This unnerved them. They expected you to conform to the norm. Seek approval, strive to impress, attempt to earn validation. But you defied those expectations, causing their ego to misjudge your true essence. Now the roles have reversed. The very stillness they once perceived as weakness is now the tranquility they cannot find elsewhere. The depth they disregarded is precisely what they are craving, having realized the emptiness of the superficial connections around them. And they are resentful not only towards themselves, but also towards how drastically they misjudged what they failed to understand. They were preoccupied with seeking someone boisterous and flamboyant. Instead, they were in the presence of someone authentic, and their ego prevented them from recognizing it. But now your energy haunts them. They find themselves measuring everyone else against you, and no one measures up. That presence they once dismissed has become the one they long to be near again. They are now captivated by you, not because you have transformed, but because they finally slowed down enough to perceive you. And the most terrifying aspect for them, they cannot manipulate their way back into your life, not after revealing how little they valued you initially. Now their spirit aches for what their ego instructed them to ignore, and they are aware that they possessed something genuine and let it slip away. Thirdly, they mistook your healing for hiding. They assumed you were withdrawing. They interpreted your silence as an avoidance of life, of people, of responsibilities. They concluded that you lacked the confidence to speak up, the self-assurance to engage, the wholeness to belong. However, the truth is you weren't hiding. You were healing. You were in a space they couldn't comprehend because they've never undertaken the inner work themselves. While they were performing, pretending, and seeking validation, you were behind closed doors, addressing wounds they were unaware you possessed. They criticized you for lacking visibility, for not being outspoken enough, for not being omnipresent. But what they failed to realize was that you were in recovery, not retreat. You were dismantling the falsehoods planted in your mind. You were recalibrating your spirit. You were enduring private battles they couldn't withstand for even a single day. While they were striving for viral fame, you were striving to align yourself with your authentic self and with a higher power. Now they are witnessing a version of you that doesn't falter, doesn't crumble, and doesn't seek validation. They are watching you manifest with a level of clarity, composure, and self-assurance that unnerves those who remember you in survival mode. And it's disrupting their perceptions because the person they thought was withdrawing is now radiating. The person they disregarded is now impossible to ignore. It's not that you have suddenly gained value, it's that they lacked the vision to perceive your value in the first place. They are now captivated by you not solely because you have evolved, it's because they are finally seeing you. But what is impacting them most profoundly is that they didn't extend you the grace to grow. They had the opportunity to support you during your struggles. Instead, they wrote you off. And now that you have emerged stronger, wiser, and more empowered, they seek access. But this version of you no longer feels compelled to seek understanding. You are no longer seeking validation from the same individuals who dismissed your process. They mistook your healing for hiding, and now they are condemned to witness you living in peace. They cannot purchase the confidence, they cannot replicate the inner strength, and they cannot feign the authenticity you possess. And the most devastating aspect for them, you didn't need to prove anything. You simply continued to evolve. Fourthly, they perceived you as fodder for gossip, failing to recognize that you were a destiny ordained by a higher power. They perceived you as fodder for gossip, a local headline, a rumor worthy of perpetuation. They circulated your name as if it were cheap entertainment, embellishing details, distorting facts, and transforming your pain into punchlines. They spoke with such conviction as if they had intimate knowledge of your entire life story. But what they were unaware of is that you were never simply a story. You were a destiny waiting to unfold, and not just any destiny, one sealed by divine authority. Meaning, regardless of their speculations, they never truly knew you. You were encoded with layers they lacked access to, hidden meanings, divine timing, prophetic purpose, and those with the loudest voices possessed the shallowest understanding of you. They didn't comprehend why you acted as you did, why you retreated when others were pushing forward, why you favored solitude over the spotlight. Consequently, they filled in the gaps with their own ignorance. They drew conclusions from confusion. They mistook silence for weakness. They mistook mystery for chaos. They mistook being different for being broken. But now the truth is beginning to surface, confronting them in ways they cannot deny, because your life is not unfolding as they predicted. The falsehoods they spread are being suffocated by the fruits you are bearing. Every incorrect assumption is collapsing under the weight of who you have become. They are witnessing the divine layers unveil one by one, revealing depth, strength, purpose, and authority. Realizations they never anticipated. And the most challenging aspect, they are now captivated by the very person they attempted to bury with gossip. They are drawn to you, fascinated by you, even inspired by you. And that terrifies them, because if the truth about you is so vastly different from what they believed, what does that signify about their own judgment? What does that signify about their own spiritual state? You were not created for superficial readings or shallow conversations. You were crafted by divine hands, encrypted with purpose, sealed until the appointed moment. And now that moment has arrived. The destiny is unfolding, and the truth, your truth, is not only being revealed, it is being experienced. Fifthly, they didn't fall in love with you, they fell into conviction while in your presence. They haven't fallen in love with you in the way they are attempting to convince themselves. What impacted them wasn't romantic infatuation, it was conviction. Something within your presence began to tug at their conscience. Being around you made them uncomfortable, but not because you acted inappropriately. It was because your peace exposed their chaos. Your integrity exposed their manipulative tactics. Your healing highlighted all the unresolved issues they continued to avoid. You didn't preach to them. You didn't point fingers. You simply existed. And that alone confronted aspects of themselves they had suppressed for years. You became a mirror they didn't request but couldn't disregard. Every lie they told themselves about being virtuous began to crumble in your presence. Every manipulative habit, every veiled insecurity, every fabricated persona, all began to feel burdensome around you. Now they are mistaking that internal conflict for love, but it's not love, not yet. It's the pang of conviction. It's the deep-seated recognition that they are not living authentically, that they have caused pain to others, including you, that they have worn too many masks for too long. You awakened something genuine within them. And because they are unaccustomed to honesty, they are confusing that awakening with romantic desire. They are not in love with you. They are drawn to the qualities you embody. Your inner light reminds them of who they could have been had they made different choices. Your strength reminds them of the power they relinquished chasing validation. Your spirit challenges every unhealed aspect of themselves, and they cannot cease thinking about you, not because they are prepared to love, but because they are finally being compelled to confront their true selves. They desire closeness to you because your energy feels pure. But what they fail to grasp is that this attraction comes with responsibility. If they wish to have access to you, they cannot simply admire you. They must transform. They must repent. They must confront what your presence is exposing. And that is where the majority falter, because it is easier to label it as love than to admit that it is conviction. It is easier to romanticize you than to declare being around you revealed how much I need to grow. But deep down, they are aware. They didn't fall in love. They fell into truth, and it's the most uncomfortable attraction they've ever experienced. Sixthly, they realized too late that you were the answer to a prayer they mocked. They scoffed when you declared you were working on yourself. They dismissed your boundaries. They gossiped about your preference for solitude, your commitment to prayer over revelry, and your dedication to healing. They believed you were wasting time being overly diligent, acting too profoundly. What they failed to realize was that while they were pursuing fleeting distractions, you were evolving into the answer to a prayer they hadn't even articulated correctly. They ridiculed your discipline because they couldn't comprehend it. They perceived your structure as control, your solitude as sadness, your consistency as obsession. But they were absent during the quiet nights you spent wrestling with your inner demons and seeking guidance. They didn't witness the battles you fought alone or the moments you felt tempted to surrender but remained steadfast regardless. They dismissed your journey as excessive overthinking, unnecessary drama, or excessive effort. But in reality, you were undergoing refinement. Now their world is crumbling and they are searching for something authentic, for inner peace, for wisdom, for guidance. Suddenly your calm demeanor makes sense. Your habits make sense. Your inner strength makes sense. All the qualities they once ridiculed are now the very qualities they are attempting to emulate. And the very person they disregarded is now the only one possessing what their soul craves. They used to joke about your spiritual path, labeling you as overly intense, asserting that you were taking life too seriously. But life has dealt them a harsh blow, and all their superficial solutions have failed. Now they are surveying their surroundings, observing hollow friendships, destructive patterns, and superficial individuals, realizing that none of them possess the qualities you embody. The one they rejected is now the one with access to clarity, direction, and discernment. It's too late to pretend they didn't notice. They are witnessing your inner light illuminate spaces they believed you could never reach, and they can feel it now. You weren't being melodramatic, you were being obedient. You weren't isolating yourself, you were being set apart. The same version of you they rejected is the version they now require. And it is painful because they didn't simply miss out on you. They missed a moment where divine grace was reaching out to them through you. And now they are left with regret, gazing upon the blessing they once mocked, wishing they had honored it when they had the opportunity. Seventhly, they succumb to the falsehoods propagated by society only to crumble before the authentic truth you became. They blindly embrace the illusion perpetuated by society that image is paramount, that worth is quantified by followers, designer labels, ostentatious confidence, and superficial success. They were conditioned to seek superficiality rather than substance. Thus, when you refused to conform, when you didn't adopt the appropriate attire or speak the language of clout and attention-seeking, they disregarded you. You didn't perform. You didn't implore to be recognized, and to them that implied you possessed no value. They were too engrossed in chasing the loudest voices, the most fashionable faces, and the most polished facades. You didn't conform to the mold, so they presumed you had nothing to offer. But what they didn't know was that while they were performing for likes and applause, you were cultivating something deeper. You were growing in silence. You were evolving into something genuine, not curated, not cosmetic. Real. Now they are witnessing your rise, and not through compromise, begging, or conformity. You ascended because you remained grounded in truth. You undertook the inner work. You chose the arduous path. You maintained your integrity when it would have been easier to compromise, and the version of you that is now emerging is shaking the very foundations of what they believed to be important. Their systems are collapsing. Their fabricated confidence is cracking. The individuals they once admired are disintegrating behind closed doors. And here you stand, solid, focused, peaceful. It's not merely shocking to them, it's confronting, because your life is demonstrating that the metrics they trusted were ultimately shallow. You are living, breathing proof that true power doesn't scream, it manifests in silence and presents itself with substance. They are not simply captivated by you, they are crumbling under the weight of the truth you embody. Your presence exposes the aspects of themselves that were built on lies. Your success without resorting to shortcuts is a mirror they were unprepared to face. Because if you could flourish without validation, heal without a spotlight, and evolve without begging, then perhaps they never truly understood the meaning of success. They dismissed you because you refused to participate in society's charade. But now they are witnessing you win by a completely different set of rules. And deep down, they recognize that your truth is authentic, that their version of worth is merely a temporary disguise and it is falling apart. Eighthly, they mocked the challenging experiences that shaped you. Now they thirst for your abundant wisdom. They mocked the difficult season that matured you because they couldn't comprehend it. In their eyes, you appeared to be losing. You weren't ostentatious. You weren't achieving victory by their standards. You weren't moving in the ways the world glorifies: constant visibility, tangible proof, ceaseless activity. Thus they assumed that a higher power had forsaken you. They gossiped behind closed doors, made light of your spiritual journey, and observed your quiet struggles with smug satisfaction. They questioned the whereabouts of your divine support. But the truth is, a higher power was shaping you in silence. The challenging times were never a punishment. They were a sacred process, a sacred space where everything inauthentic had to dissolve. Ego, performance, validation, addiction, identity tethered to outcomes. While they were scoffing at your perceived lack, you were being stripped of everything that didn't align with your purpose. And it was brutal, isolating, perplexing, but it was necessary because a higher power wasn't simply preparing your blessings. They were preparing you to handle them without faltering, without mirroring their behavior. Now the ones who mocked you are the ones experiencing spiritual dehydration. They are surrounded by shallow interactions, hollow victories, and people who celebrate their masks but disregard their souls. And they are exhausted because what appeared to be abundance was actually a desert in disguise. The very individuals who once ridiculed your process are now situated in the midst of their own barren landscape, thirsting for something deeper, more authentic, more vibrant. And here you stand, not just surviving, but overflowing with peace that doesn't require permission, with clarity that doesn't require influence, with an inner glow that didn't originate from external products, but from enduring pressure. You now possess abundant wisdom, abundant understanding, presence, discernment, healing, and they are beginning to sense it. The attraction, the thirst, the quiet longing for something more than the life they constructed on aesthetics and acclaim. They are realizing that challenging times didn't break you. They built you. They instilled deep roots within you, and now as your wisdom begins to flow, they are parched in areas they never knew were dry. The very ones who scoffed when you were being refined are now hoping to partake of what they once disrespected. But wisdom such as yours isn't acquired through shortcuts. It's unearthed through deep introspection. And it only flows after a soul has endured something profound. Ninthly, they were captivated by the counterfeit, and now they are haunted by your authenticity. They were presented with a choice, and they opted for the spectacle, the clamor, the performance. They pursued what glittered on the surface without ever considering whether it possessed any depth beneath. Louder voices excited them, flashier lifestyles impressed them, more persuasive individuals made them feel valued. Thus, when you appeared with your calm, your quiet consistency, your grounded presence, they overlooked you. They mistook your authenticity for simplicity. They couldn't recognize what was sacred because they were accustomed to what was synthetic. They chose the counterfeit because it was easier to consume. No challenge, no mirrors, just surface-level connection masquerading as authenticity. And initially it felt gratifying. It felt validating. The counterfeit came with drama disguised as passion, manipulation disguised as love, chaos disguised as excitement. But gradually everything began to unravel, because when the mask slipped there was nothing beneath but emptiness. Now they are haunted not simply by the errors they committed, but by the presence they abandoned. Yours, the one they couldn't articulate, yet couldn't forget, the one that didn't require performance, the one that made them feel seen without being objectified. And that kind of authenticity doesn't quietly fade from a person's spirit. It lingers. It echoes. It confronts them at unexpected moments when they are around individuals who speak excessively but say little, when they are with someone who meets every criterion but still feels hollow. They are realizing that the calm you possessed wasn't emptiness, it was stability. The way you moved deliberately wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. The way you didn't compete wasn't passivity, it was inner peace. And now nothing around them possesses your unique frequency. No one brings what you brought. No one else makes them feel safe without demanding submission, and that absence resonates more loudly than anything they have ever heard. So if there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's that the way others perceive you is often a reflection of their own internal landscape, not a true measure of your worth. Don't let the judgments of others define you or deter you from your path. Embrace your journey, nurture your authenticity, and keep evolving into the incredible person you are meant to be. The people who truly matter will see you for who you are, and their support will be a genuine blessing. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you ever experienced something similar? Share your stories, ask questions, or just leave a comment below. Let's start a conversation. And if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. We'll be exploring more topics like this, all designed to help you live a more authentic and fulfilling life. Thanks for watching, for watching, for watching, for watching.